And we are live. Oh, awesome. This is really fun. I've never done something like this before. Thank you. We are here celebrating 1,000 subscribers for the live stream. We're going to do a little bit of a question and answer. And I'm out here enjoying a beautiful, nice winter day here in Texas, which is nice and warm for winter at least. And let's just get going right into those. First of all, we have CJ who runs the Mythology Multiverse. I'll link the Discord and Reddit. Awesome community. And Caldazar, who is one of our top patrons. If you enjoyed the Solomon video, you have Caldazar to thank for that. It was his patron request at the $10 level. They both asked CJ's words, "My question's fairly plain, but everyone has a different answer to it. What is it that prompted you to begin making videos in the first place?" And Caldazar, phrasing similarly, how did it all start? Why did you decide one day, hey, let's make a mythology podcast? Hello, Katya. Happy to see you here. Awesome channel, by the way. Anyone interested in the Slavic mythology, fans of our Baba Yaga episode, perhaps check out Katerina Pavlova's channel. Really great in-depth stuff. So, to answer those questions, I had always been interested in doing some kind of YouTube media sort of hobby. I'm currently, for my day job, I'm training for a career in finance. So I had considered maybe something in the personal finance way, but I find that when you're talking about money and things like that, it becomes a little iffy. So I wanted to keep my hobby and my career separate. Now, I've always been very interested in mythology, in traditional storytelling. I mean, I can read Homer for days and days on end. So it really just made sense. Now, the funny story of how it actually started, I got called for jury duty, which, if anyone not living in America doesn't know, jury duty is the most boring thing. You have to spend an entire day. Sitting around just in case you need to be called for a jury and you probably aren't and you don't get paid and you do absolutely nothing. Um, and hello, Daisy. Happy to see you here. Welcome. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and type in the chat. So, I was on jury duty and needed a way to pass the time. And I opened up a notebook and started writing what would become our first episode on the book of Genesis, doing a symbolic reading of that. And that became our first ever episode. So that's how I started. As far as why mythology, it's just something I've really enjoyed. I think a lot of our mythology media tends to focus on, like, oh, which god would win in a fight, or oh, who did Zeus bang this time? But really, there's so much beautiful symbolism. No problem. Since you tell me not to mind, I will not even try. But thank you. I'm so happy to see you here. Um, this is really cool. This is way more people than I even expected. But I wanted to really explore the deeper symbolic levels of mythology. Now, that's the first question. Moving on, Katerina Pavlova, who is here right now. Again, awesome Slavic mythology channel. She's a native Russian, knows this stuff so well. Give her a sub. Asks, which mythology were you introduced to first? Well, so I am a Christian, and I was raised as in a Catholic church, going to Sunday school every week, and that really, I had a lot of questions about the more symbolic language in the Bible. Specifically, I remember I was reading the book of Revelation when I was very young. Ooh, I will absolutely be continuing on the native work. I have an awesome book for that right here. Such a great source. So I had been reading the book of Revelation and I was young, and it is some very confusing, cryptic stuff when you're first reading. A lot of numerology, a lot of symbolism, and I was very, really struggling to understand. So I'd asked a priest, hey, what's this? I believe what I asked specifically was about 144,000 being the number saved. I was like, there are billions of us, and like half the world is Christian. That is not a lot of people. And he explained symbolism in the numbers in the Jewish tradition, which, of course, the early Christian tradition, John, who was writing, had a Jewish background. And he explained that, well, the numbers are 12 tribes of Israel times 12 apostles times 1,000, and it all just branches out. And it's saying very, very many from all these sources. And I thought, wow, one number can tell that much. How much can all these stories tell? So it was actually biblical symbolism that first got me interested in understanding this symbolic world of mythology. And it really, I found that the symbolic language of the Bible is the similar symbolic language in Native American myths, in Greek myths, all over the world. And it's just a very certain way of talking. We, in our current world, we like to have things very historical minded, very literal. This happened, then this, then this. And I've really found that a lot of ancient texts don't work that way. They aren't very interested in that type of storytelling that we are primarily interested in today. And it is a lot more symbolic, and everything has meaning on many different levels. That's something I always try to get in these episodes, that these practical meanings, regardless of your tradition you follow, if any, your practical meanings can be applied to the individual, to inside your psyche, to a small group, to a nation. Um, it's very fractal like, levels on levels in these stories. So that is the long way of saying biblical symbolism is what I was introduced to first. Now, this actually goes well into the next question from Eilif of the Ancient World podcast. We have collaborated before. He's doing some excellent work on Dante's Divine Comedy. Amazing, beautiful symbolism in here. Highly recommend the Ancient World podcast. Eilif asks, great work. A question from me would be, what is the biggest insight you've found in mythology making the videos? Which new discoveries has that led to? So, understanding this symbolic language has done a lot for me. An insight that a story that may not appear to be saying much when you first read it actually turns out to have so many different levels. Um, Reading Greek stories, for example, I honestly think that so much of what modern psychology is just learning, or just learning how to phrase at least, are things that the Greeks were aware of thousands of years ago and explaining in a different way. Um, Seeing that fractal like structure where everything can apply within yourself, and then in yourself and the way you interact with others, then on a family scale, on a nation scale. So many of these themes, order and chaos, change and stability, these different psychological forces, it's absolutely blows my mind. And it's really led to me understanding things very differently, and even looking at the world in a different way. There's this beautiful, and it's actually great that you asked this question, because it was while reading Dante's Comedy and your work in Paradise, explaining the moon. That was always a very strange part of Dante to understand for me, what was going on in the moon. Then he described it as, well, Dante's question, for anyone who hasn't read, is he asks Beatrice, why is some of the moon different colors? Why is some darker than the rest? And trust me, it's getting somewhere. The answer is, well, each is reflecting the sun to the best of its ability. And that's also why the moon has phases, because it reflects the way it can. And that the moon, being the first level of Dante's paradise, is for people who maybe made a vow but weren't able to stick to it, or people who have a very waxing and waning spirituality, reflecting, in Dante's case, the light of God as best they can. And everyone in Dante's paradise is happy with the level they're at because it's the one most natural for them. It's very beautiful, and it's where you fit. And there was one day when I was just looking up at the moon, and I had this beautiful feeling of just understanding exactly what Dante was going for. Life as a reflection of goodness. So that was really a beautiful insight and discovery that changed my personal life. Hello, Mythology Guy. Thank you for the congratulations. Perfect, perfect, perfect timing, actually, because I'm getting to your question. Mythology Guy, again, awesome channel, awesome community we have going on. Check his work out. It's crazy to think that you've just scratched the surface of what inspiration this show, that being Avatar, The Last Airbender. Also, thanks for the awesome reception of that latest episode. Draws on. The amount of cultures this show draws from is truly astounding. For the Q&A, obviously you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but what other shows, movies, and books are you a fan of and would like to do videos on them? So, well, I'm a fan of quite a bit. What might fit as a video varies. I am totally unrelated to what mythology will be addressed today, Daisy asks. We are actually just doing a live stream of whatever was asked. If you have a question or something, we can. I'll let you know very soon our upcoming plans. But so, Mythology Guy, I am a big fan of a lot of things that wouldn't fit. I'm a huge fan of professional wrestling. It's a little geeky, but I've been into it since I was a kid. I love the storytelling through the way people do the motions in the ring, the way people can tell stories with just their body. It's so interesting, such a cool form of storytelling. Worth checking out if you can suspend your disbelief. As far as what may be mythos and logos worthy, because all due respect to The Undertaker, I don't think I could do an episode. I am a big fan of super symbolic language in Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings. Beautiful stuff. I have a lot of reading I've done on here. I definitely think maybe when we get to our next milestone, that Tolkien may be a great, great source for another one of our modern mythos. I'm also a big comic book fan. There's some awesome storytelling in in a lot of the books. Superman, for example, I mean, in his origin, the child being sent away, there's a lot of sort of Moses symbolism, and the authors of Superman were two Jews, so it makes sense. There's a lot of beautiful storytelling, psychology in Batman, so much cool symbolism in the best comic books as well. So Tolkien and comics are definitely things I would be interested in. Now, Daisy asks, what mythology will be addressed today? Well, today we're just getting to whatever people are asking about. That is totally open. In general, going forward, so I'm currently working on an episode of biblical symbolism in the book of Exodus, based on St. Gregory of Nyssa's book, The Life of Moses. Gregory is I want to say 4th century, possibly 5th, but I want to say 4th century Byzantine bishop. And he did this book called, well, among many other works, he wrote this book called The Life of Moses, which explains the book of Exodus, one at a historical level, and then second at a symbolic one, viewing Egypt as the earthly life, the life based on productivity. And I mean, Egypt back in the day is how we might imagine New York or London or Hong Kong today, as this epicenter of culture and busyness. And Israel being the spiritual life, focused not on the production, but on the internal growth, relationship with God, with divinity. And I'm planning next, I'm actually working on right now, studying how Gregory of Nyssa's work and the book of Exodus can be applied to someone, regardless of whether you're a Christian or not, to understanding how to live a good life in balancing the spiritual and the earthly. So I'm hoping to have that up in the next couple of weeks. After that, we are doing a Norse story. It is going to be Thor and Loki in Utgard, the Outrealm, and there's some really cool stuff. The Norse stories, I often have a lot of trouble with learning the symbolic language of. It's different from what I'm used to, but in this story of them in Utgard, I've found a lot of I found some very harmonious meanings, especially with a lot of the Greek work. So I'm very excited for that one. So up next is going to be Life of Moses and Book of Exodus, followed by the Norse mythology for the first time. Anything else you'd like to hear? Let me know. Then Moon Song, one of our subscribers asks, pardon for the table shaking, asks, congratulations, I'm one of the new subbers. Your Baba Yaga video was very good and is my favorite version of the story. Thank you so much. I'm honored. I've gotten a renewed interest in mythology and folklore from countries other than mine. I was looking for folklore from Russia. That's when I found your video. Moonsong, if you're watching, check out Katerina Pavlova's videos. Awesome Slavic mythology, awesome Russian stories. Seriously, well worth it if you're interested in Russia. Moonsong's questions are, how do you start your research? And what are your favorite locations in terms of sources like Irish or Greek, etc.? So, research, I often start, um, I have a lot of books. And I will do some reading and just see if something jumps out at me. Um, that said, if I have a certain request, I often start, and it's not a good point for its own, but it's an excellent jumping off point, is Wikipedia. It just turned 20 years old, as a matter of fact. Everyone who does wiki, you are saints in our world of academics. And I'll often start, if I'm not familiar with a work, looking at a Wikipedia page, going to the linked authors, linked philosophers, linked theologians, linked stories, getting the broad landscape, and then moving forward from there, finding a primary source to read. There's a lot of great commentary on mythology, but me personally, I like to go into work. I thanks, mythology guy. I'm sure you got a lot of books too, so it takes one to know one as far as nerds go. As far as once I like to prefer a primary source because I like to go into something untainted, so to say, by other commentaries, so I can see what jumps out to me first, and then I'll go forward, finding what might be, um, what else might be applicable, what else might be useful, and what other commentaries might unlock another level for me that I might not have seen. That said, I always go with my intuition. And oh, thank you very much, Daisy. So I always go with my intuition first reading and then branch out from there. Um, Oftentimes, when I read one story, I'll think of another and find the themes. But as far as research goes, it really is starting with a book. If I'm not familiar, then going to Wiki, gathering sources, finding various people and sources to read, then going from there. As far as my favorite locations in terms of sources, I'm a big fan of Native American stories and mythology. Um, I am in America. I'm of Irish Italian background, but I do live here. And I feel like I owe it to this awesome country. We have our problems, but there's no place else like it, I'll tell you that much. And I feel like I owe it to how many cultures go into here to study and learn those ways. There's been a lot of troubled history, but I think if we can amplify other voices, then it's a beautiful thing. I find that the Native American symbolic language really is so intuitive to me. And I understand a lot of it very well. In my second ever video, which is currently our most viewed on the Iroquois creation story, I did some sources from some Jesuit Catholic priests who had said that the Native Americans were perfect to be able to discuss stories with and discuss theology and receive the gospel because their symbolism was, to quote, I think it was Paul Lejeune. I might be wrong. Watch the video, give me another view, find out if I was right or wrong. To quote, he had said that the Native Americans surpassed even the Greeks and Romans in their understanding of mythology and understanding of the forces in the world. There's a lot of beautiful symbolism that's been told throughout so many generations, and these stories that keep going. So Native Americans, absolutely. Greece has beautiful poetry. I find that the Greeks especially connect with me on the internal psychological level. Um, One of my favorite songs and albums of all time is Hemispheres by the band Rush. It was recommended to me by my therapist, actually, and talks about the brain hemispheres and balancing rigid structure and logic with the openness and lovingness and recreation of a little bit of creative potential. And it tells this story as a war between Apollo and Dionysus. And it's so beautiful and speaks so well to me. So I feel like, as far as spiritual things, that level, I tend to uh, really connect with a lot of Native American symbolic language. And as far as the internal psychological level, the Greeks work wonders for me. Um, that's just my preference. Then, what looks to be our last question is from my wife, Marie. She asks, "Are you married?" "Yes, honey, I'm married. I'm married to you. Thank you for marking your territory." Uh, Otherwise, yes, and Marie was actually, I love this woman so much. She waited until I had 999 to be subscriber number 1000. So I'm extra thankful to her. Otherwise, that is just about everything. I think I am going to make a new cup of tea because mine is fresh out. I am going to get to studying on the life of Moses. Then after that will be the Norse. After that, maybe I'll break out this Native American myths book again and see what else we have going there. One little treat for you for sticking around. Junie, come here. My name is Sean. His name is Junie. Welcome to Mythos and Doggos. Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. I'll see y'all around. Bye.